Calumet here. So yeah, welcome to our special webinar on solving the challenges of loading and unloading with knowledge automation. We have a special guest today, Calumet Montana Refining, so we're very excited about that. So let me introduce the speakers today. We've got Clint Mengini. Clint is an operations superintendent at Calumet Montana Refining. He's spent over 20 years in fuels refining, with 15 years in operations and 5 years in quality control lab roles. And we're really excited to have Clint here because Clint has been leading an effort at his refinery to improve their loading operations. And Calumet was really the first to implement this solution, this platform for loading and unloading, especially for managing third-party companies. So we're really excited to have Clint here. He's been an excellent person to work with and leader. We've also got Fran Montemuro, our Director of Operations here at Voovio. Fran has over 30 years of manufacturing experience with DuPont and was plant manager at multiple sites, managing both batch and continuous processes. And then myself, Christian McDermott. I'm the market coordinator here at Voovio, and I'm going to show you the Calumet platform. So I'll hand it over to Fran, who's going to continue the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Christian. So let me talk about rail car and tank truck unloading and loading challenges. Let's start with the number of hazmat incidents that there have been in the industry. And this data has been taken from the Department of Transportation website around hazmat and hazardous incidents. So annually, on average, over the last 20 years, there's been over 11,500 incidents. So quite a significant impact. And that's what we want to talk about today. So those incidents, what are the causes behind those incidents? And what we found, if you look into the data, is two main causes: failure to follow procedures. It's a operational discipline piece, as well as equipment failure. And as you can imagine, the impact can be and has been significant. And they go from environmental and community impact to significant product losses and costly cleanups, to not only employee but community exposure. And then associated with most incidents are asset damages. And there's damages at the facility, at the sites, either doing the loading and unloading or during the transportation, either on the rail or on the highways. Also with most incidents are regulatory fines. These are both regulated transportation, whether it's by the Federal Rail Commission or Department of Transportation. And then lastly, with some incidents, there's the cross-contamination, wrong content loaded into a trailer or into a rail car. So significant impact across the industry for these over 11,500 incidents happening annually. So if we look at the details associated with these incidents, specifically focused on the operational discipline errors, those related to procedures or failure to follow procedures, you can see that the rail incidents are more costly, averaging about $40,000 per incident, and nearly half of those incidents that are occurring are related to human error or the operational discipline errors. Whereas in trucking, 39% of those are related to operational discipline or human error related impact, and their average cost per incident is $9,000. So why is that? Why do they occur? Well, the nature of loading and unloading is challenging. So as we canvass our customers and look across the industry, broke it down to 4 reasons. Typically in the loading and unloading operation, there's high personnel turnover. And there's a number of reasons behind that. Some is just the variation in skill level. Some of it's related to the way the sites or our customers chose to staff that part of the operation. And usually we see new hires or an entry-level position for the loading and unloading part of the operation. That in itself brings its challenges. And some companies will use contractors to either do the loading as operations contractors, or as we will hear today, they have the drivers do the loading. Another reason for some of the challenges is the antiquated system for training. We find a lot of manual systems, a lot of paperwork in place to get these operators and or drivers trained. The significant regulatory requirements, as I mentioned, it's the FRA, the DOT regulate the hazardous transportation, hazardous movement of materials. So there's a lot of regulations around loading and unloading hazardous materials. And to that point, the sheer complexity of managing the hazardous materials, the required PPE for the operators to load or unload, so that in itself can make loading challenging. And then with those hazards, with the PPE, the procedures that the operator or driver needs to use to successfully complete the loading or unloading operation. So there's a lot of challenges with the loading and unloading of hazardous materials. So with that, as a brief overview, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Clint and have him talk to you about Calumet Montana Refining.
Thanks, Fran. As Fran mentioned, my name is Clint Mangini. I'm with Calumet Montana Refining in Great Falls, Montana. We operate a 25,000 barrel per day fuels refinery. We make all the gasoline products, diesel products, jet fuel, and then also asphalt. We have around 80 union operators, and we have a list of about 180 carriers hauling from two truck terminals in our facility. One of those terminals is a light oil fuels rack, and the other is the asphalt terminal. Roughly about 1,500 truckloads per month during the peak months in the summer. And we are pretty much 100% a self-loading facility. So as drivers come in, they perform the loading on their own. We have operators that basically make rounds and tend to issues as needed. Some of the challenges that we were looking to solve was first to reduce operator and admin workload. We're training about 10 new drivers per month. And that peaks at about 20 new drivers per month on average during the start of the asphalt season, about this time of the year. And the operator time and overtime costs start to add up with that. And we have basically one operator on shift that shares time with other areas. So we wanted to maximize his time and allow him to spend time elsewhere as needed. We also wanted to improve the quality of training. We needed to overhaul our driver training program, and so Voovio allowed us to go through and do that. And one of those bullet points was to improve training consistency. Instead of having drivers, instead of having operators do training, we try and incorporate all that through Voovio, and then the operator is basically doing an evaluation. And then last, we wanted to mitigate some incidents.
Okay, great. Thanks, Clint. So let me turn it over to Christian and have him demo the solution.
Okay, thank you, Clint and Fran. So I'm going to share my screen here. And if someone could just give me confirmation that my screen is being shared, perhaps Fran or Mark?
Yes.
Perfect. So what I'm going to show you is Calumet's platform, and I'm going to show it to you as if I was a driver. who is going to drive to Calumet Montana Refining and load asphalt into the truck on the self-load rack. And keep in mind, I could be an operator. I know many of you out there have operators doing this, but in the case of Calumet, it's third-party drivers. So as a driver picking up from Calumet, I have to take a test. So I actually have to qualify on a test on some procedures which you see here before I can gain entry into the refinery. So I get an automated email, and it gives me access to the platform you're looking at right now. And this is where I can actually practice and familiarize myself with not only the refinery, but the procedures as well. So first, before I arrive at the refinery, I kind of want to check out the asphalt rack. So what you're looking at right now is a real view of the asphalt rack, and this allows me as the driver to walk around and check it out before arriving. Everything I'm going to show you right now might appear a little bit jumpy or jerky, but that's probably because of the conference platform we're using right now, but I'm using this on my laptop, and it's totally smooth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start walking through this real view of the area. You'll see the trucks here, and I'm going to now go up the steps to the asphalt rack, where I can also look around and familiarize myself with the environment. You'll see as I turn these corners, you might see these green boxes everywhere. Those are pieces of the equipment I'm going to have to interact with to perform the procedures I'm supposed to do when I'm there on the self-loading rack. So these pieces of equipment are also clearly labeled, so I can actually check them out right here on my computer before arriving. And you'll see they're clearly labeled. You'll see I have the emergency stop button up here. This is the supply ball valve for the asphalt spout. And I can actually click on it, and I get a detailed view of it. And in fact, I can interact with it. So Voovio is not only allows me to familiarize myself with the areas, but I can interact with the equipment, which is key for the simulation or the ability to practice the procedure, which I'll show you shortly. My procedure actually tells me that I need to access specific pieces of equipment. So there is a searchable list, so I can go through and search for things. I'm going to search for the fan switch because I don't know where that is. The procedure says I need to be aware of it. So if I click on it in the components index, it takes me straight to where that fan switch is located, and you'll see it right here on the screen. And so in addition to being able to look at the equipment on the rack, you have the map at the bottom here. So I can actually look at where everything is in relation to the rack and the entrance. We have the entrance here on the left, the weighing station up top here, and the rack here. And in fact, there's a couple of things I wanted to check outside. Again, the procedure tells me to check to install the wheel chocks correctly. So I just want to review that again here for peace of mind. I can utilize the toolbox here. So I'm going to select the wheel chocks, and I can sort of really comprehend how to install them. This is my first time to Calumet Montana Refining as a driver, so these little things are really important so I have fewer questions and doubts on arrival. So I think I'm pretty familiar now with the area, with the asphalt rack. Now there's a couple of procedures I need to perform as part of a test before I can get gate access. One of them is just the rules and regulations of some of the racks here. And on the screen here, let me explain what this is. So we have the Montana Refining procedure here on the left. But what Voovio does for this rules and regulation is it maps or attaches contextual information to each step. So, for example, I need all the necessary documents concerning my load before entering the terminal. Here it actually shows me the pictures of what I need to have. And in fact, one of the other steps refers to an emergency button, which we looked at before. And again, it maps that emergency button to the step in the procedure, so I have that visual clarification right here. So I've read the rules and regulations. I'm pretty competent in those. What about the actual procedure for loading the asphalt? Now, imagine I've already completed entering the refinery. I've weighed the truck, which is in the beginning of the procedure. I've now parked the truck at the correct location on the asphalt rack, and now I need to perform the loading operation. Let me explain what's on the screen. So as a driver, it's really useful because I have the procedure here on the left, which is the Word document or the PDF, and I have the real view of the rack, so I can perform everything, perform every action. And on the left here at the top, you see this checklist. And as a driver, this is particularly useful because I've never done this procedure before in real life. I've done procedures at other companies, and some of them do contain generalizations and ambiguities. So what this checklist does up here is it's really action-focused. It only tells me each action I need to perform in sequence, and it's obviously mapped to the procedure. So very clear. The procedure clarity becomes even clearer. So let me do the first few steps here. So I need to open the asphalt spout lid. So I've just opened that lid, and I'm physically having to interact with the equipment here. And again, we have that contextual information that pops up where needed. So I need to select the asphalt spout from the toolbox here and position it above the hatch. And now I need to take the asphalt spout, grab it, and lower it into the tank truck. And then I need to secure it with the chain. So again, it's driving that clarity. I'm mapped to the real view of the equipment, and I'm physically having to learn by doing. So it's really bringing that procedure to life. Again, this ball valve I need to open, and then comes the fan switch, I believe, where I have to turn this on. So I'm able to use this 24/7. Before I get to the refinery, I can access this on any device. I'm using a laptop or a tablet, and I can review and practice this procedure as many times as I want. And in fact, it even shows me the control panels here, the AccuLoad panel, and walks me through how to operate the panels. So it really drives that clarity and that confidence as a driver before I arrive on site. So everything I've just shown you is based on learning and familiarizing myself with the procedure and the equipment. But what about that test that I need to take? So this here is the test environment. It looks exactly the same, but I don't have those green arrows. So it's not like the virtual trainer that I was just showing you. This is very much unassisted, and it will give me immediate feedback on when I do something correct or incorrect. So we're now here at the rack again. I need to open the hatch and then confirm. And you'll see on the left we have a test report which tells me I got the action correct. So the next step is to lower the asphalt spout, again, if you remember, or position it rather, and then lower it into the tank and secure it with the chain. and you'll see again, I'm performing all these actions on my own without assistance and getting these ones correct. So I have that immediate feedback. But what if I now make a mistake? So perhaps I've done something out of sequence. I turn the fan switch on before I open that valve. And you'll see I get immediate feedback, and the system actually tells me what I did wrong. And it gives me the opportunity to review it and try again. Now, this is a simulator after all, so I can try this again and try to correct that mistake. So I'm going to get the ball valve, I'm going to open it, and again, I physically have to interact with the equipment, and then I do the fan switch. So you'll see here that you get a report. At the end of a test, you get a report, and this is all stored in the cloud, so there's no manual tasks for me as a driver. But I can get access to my report, which tells me what score I got, and it's a detailed log of everything I did, including the mistakes I made and where I corrected them. Now, as a driver, it's very simple. If I pass, then I can go and enter the refinery, and they have a record of that when I arrive at the gate. So let's take a quick look at the platform itself. I'm going to show you, for the purposes of this demonstration, the Voovio demonstration platform rather than Calumet's data with real driver data. But this is essentially the same. So this is the portal where me as a driver, I can access those procedure simulators. I can learn and practice the procedure. I can take my assignments. These are the tests here at the top. Very easy. All progress is automatically saved in the cloud. So if I start a test and I don't finish it and want to come back to it later, all progress is saved. I can access my own test reports here as a driver. But let's think about from the Calumet perspective, so from Clint's team. So there's a few things here that make life very easy and automated for them. You can assign truck drivers tests directly. And remember, there's 180 different trucking companies with about 900 drivers. So very easy to set up groups of tests, perhaps for specific trucking companies at the same time. You can look at grades as well. So in this example, we have Voovio Shift A, and this is an assignment that was created. And you have a snapshot of who has not completed this, either because they haven't attempted it or they did not reach that passing score which is required. You can access their test reports very easily here. So you can drill down into individual driver or operator tests and see where they're going wrong. And importantly, you can see those who have completed the test and passed the score. Now there's an overall snapshot view as well. All that test data and those scores is in this graph here you see, which shows us a snapshot of the competency level of this shift of operators. In the case of Calumet, it could be a trucking company with 5 drivers. So on the y-axis, you'll see the number of occurrences, and on the x, you see the score. So you see 11 people here got 100%. And on the other end of the spectrum, 4 people got 75%. So you may, want to work on those 4 individuals that scored 75%. But the average here you can see is over 90%. So that's pretty good. The other piece of important data that the platform provides is where people are going wrong. Now, on this graph, on the x-axis, we have the step number in this procedure, the step numbers. So you can see step number 4, 4 people got that wrong. Now, you might wonder, well, why did they get that wrong? Or if 10 people got that wrong, you have the opportunity now to see that and to dig a little bit deeper and actually open that step, which is step 4 in this procedure, by clicking this link, and see why they're going wrong. And in this example, you'll see here we have 2 very similar valves right next to each other, and what's been going on, and you can drill this down in the test reports as well as this, that those 4 operators have been turning the wrong valve here. They've been turning the one on the left instead of the one on the right, opening that. So this snapshot allows you to have that data, that intelligence, and to, remedy that. And it could be a procedure improvement, a communication improvement, or a training improvement. So it allows you to focus on those weak spots. So everything I've just shown you for a truck driver, this gives me everything I need in one simple platform, and I can be competent and confident on arrival. And for Calumet, for Clint's team, it automates all the training in a user-friendly platform, and it provides those snapshots of which trucking companies or drivers are competent and where you might need to focus your attention in terms of extra support or training. So with that, I want to turn it back to Clint, who is going to talk about the impact that this platform has had at Calumet Montana Refining.
Thank you, Christian. In the short time that we've had this program implemented, we've realized some significant time savings for the operators. We've gone from previously training drivers one-on-one, going through the complete loading process with them up to 2 to 3 times, down to basically doing an evaluation on the skills that the drivers have. We now have a structured and consistent training program. Drivers know what to expect and are better prepared as they come in. They're more familiar with the equipment on site and are able to recognize issues early on. Also, drivers give us better feedback, which we rely on fairly heavily, being a self-loading facility. When there are issues for us to troubleshoot, we rely on what information they can give us. We now have an automated solution that documents driver test results, sends us email notifications when drivers pass, and we now have a lot of new confidence in the drivers, and life is a little bit easier for us.
Okay, great. Thank you, Clint. That was a good overview. Appreciate it. So if I summarize what we heard from Clint and some of what Christian covered with us, is what Calumet ended up implementing was a seamless automated cloud-based platform, and that's how Voovio was able to help Calumet transform their entire training program with the truck driver. So some of the key points that was mentioned was having these simulators for the loading operation available to the truck drivers 24/7, and given Calumet the ability to assign the trucking company, the dispatch, as well as the drivers, those modules that will pertain to that driver being on site. It's really enhanced the ability, the work that the Calumet operator then does with those truck drivers. It gets the orientation out of the way. The driver is not allowed on site until they complete their competency of those simulation modules, and they can practice that 24/7. It's available to them whether they take it on a tablet or at a desktop. Having to train the significant number of drivers across the 180 trucking companies was a huge task. So having this thing, all the content available on the cloud, has really streamlined the orientation process for the Calumet team. And they're able to assess competency across the trucking companies by using the knowledge platform. So in summary, again, as we heard from Clint, it's been a benefit, and it's afforded the operator that's assigned to that unit, it's freed them up to spend more time in some of their operations, other operation areas. So how long did it take Voovio to set up this platform working with Calumet? It was relatively quick. We started the process by sending a couple of our engineers to the site to walk the procedures with Clint and his team. Clint assigned one subject matter expert to walk with our engineers. It took 3 days, and we captured all the content, following the procedures, clarifying where practice didn't match procedure, and detailed all that. And Christian mentioned the importance of having action steps, and that's what our engineers did with the SME, was detail those action steps and then marry those action steps to the digital replica of the site. We left there and turned around and delivered the final product to Clint and his team in 10 weeks. And part of the delivery involved us training his team, the team that's going to be responsible for the drivers, as well as we spent time with the trucking companies when needed to train the drivers on how to access Voovio, access the simulation modules, and complete their competency assessment. Within Voovio, there's a strong operations team. We make ourselves available to ensure our customers have a successful project, and we continue to stay working with Clint and his team to make sure that the drivers are showing up, trained, and if there are any nuances that need to be addressed, we spend the time to work with Calumet to address those so those drivers can get on site and hit the ground running when they get there. So lastly, I just wanted to cover something that Christian mentioned, and we didn't spend a lot of time detailing it, and I think it's important to cover that. So Christian talked about clarity, procedure clarity, and I want to highlight that because we find a lot of procedures across the sites have a lot of ambiguity and generalizations. It could be as simple as close the drain valves, and that operator is then expected to know where those drain valves are. In one case, we had a procedure that had 22 drain valves. So what Voovio does with their engineers that they send to the site is walk those procedures with the subject matter expert and create clear and concise action checklists. And then with that action checklist, having the digital replica of the site, the photorealistic site that the operator can then visualize how they're going to perform that step, really brings that clarity to the operator. And then lastly, practicing that simulation, learn by doing, building that confidence and competence that when they go and execute in the field, that they know exactly what valve they need to be actuating, which component needs to be touched. So just wanted to highlight the importance of procedure clarity for those operators, for the truck drivers as they perform the procedures in the field. So with that, wrap up, and we can open it up for questions.
Okay, so Brian, I can start asking some of the questions. We've got quite a few of them coming in. So let's start off with one for Clint. So Clint, what kind of benefits are you seeing for your operators?
I think the main thing is the time savings. We're, like I mentioned before, we've gone from having to spend one-on-one time with the driver throughout the entire loading process multiple times to basically just doing an evaluation on their skills and their knowledge as they come in their final time. The other thing is the operators, because of that time savings, they get to share their time better. The other priorities are not impacted quite as much, and then we realize quite a bit less overtime as well.
Okay, thanks, Clint. So yeah, keep your questions coming in the Q&A feature. A question here for Voovio. Can we update the simulators on our own, or do we need to make do we need you to make the changes? I can take that one, Fran. So customers can make the immense majority of the updating without Voovio. It usually consists of adding knowledge snippets, changing photographs of new pieces of equipment and so on, and we'll provide you with a tool for doing it yourself. But if you feel you don't have the time, we can make them for you. So, that way, a lot of customers don't have the spare resources to do it. We can do it really fast, and it makes economic sense as well. So we can basically take care of everything for you. Another question for Clint. What are the benefits for the drivers?
I think the drivers are more informed, overall early on as they come in. That affects safety and maintenance of the equipment, and I think that they appreciate that. They're able to ask more relevant questions and give us better feedback.
Okay, perfect. Another question for you, Clint. Are you leveraging Voovio in other areas of the refinery?
We have not yet, but we are looking into some other areas in our department as we speak.
Okay. Question for Voovio. Do we need to review the procedures before we send them to you for a quote or for a project?
Christian, I can take that. Yeah. So no, really on the contrary, that's what we do. I mean, we call that the line walk process. We send our engineers to the site to walk those procedures with the subject matter expert. So it's a great way to complete that procedure review, job cycle check. Our engineers have experience in the industry and quite familiar with the chemical refinery plant procedures. So no, you don't need to review them. Send them to us, and we'll complete that line walk with your subject matter expert, and we'll ensure that the current operator practice and written procedure align, and we even make sure that we follow the site's MOC process to complete that review.
Okay, so thanks, Fran. So another question, it looks like Voovio, if I wanted to simulate every procedure in my plant or refinery, would you be able to do it? I can take that one, Fran. Yes, of course we can, and we'll deploy the necessary resources. We just need to agree on the calendar that fits, best for you. So some of the things you need to keep in mind or would constrain the schedule would be turnarounds, maybe your subject matter expert availability, maybe even the weather. So as long as we plan around those things, we'll be able to, meet your needs, and we're very flexible. Okay, so let's do another question for Clint. What is the feedback from the drivers?
The drivers overall appreciate it. They like the extra knowledge. They like being more familiar, and they have a little bit more confidence when they come in. Like mentioned in the presentation, it's a fairly complex system to do this, and I think that initially carriers, the companies themselves, probably a little bit more standoffish. It was a big change that we implemented in doing this. But once they got the flow and once they started to understand the process, it's really been a non-issue, and I think it's overall it's definitely positive.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Clint. Okay, so we have another question. It looks like for Voovio. And this is for a new facility, not yet constructed. How would a virtual Voovio model be created? The intent would be to use the system to train operators prior to startup. Fran, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can start to answer, and if you want to add to it. So a couple of ways we can train on. We can use a CAD model. If that's what you have, I mean, we can start with a CAD model. But if the customer prefers, a level of realism that's photorealistic, then we could get out there and start photo shooting the equipment that is on ground, keeping in mind that we can deliver the project in 12 to 18 weeks. So if we can get on the ground and do that walkthrough and get it to the customer within the 12 to 18 weeks, and that's prior to startup, that'd be the preference. But we can use any means of pictures available to create that initial training. However, we would recommend coming back and creating the replica that is more realistic that the operator can then relate to.
Okay. Thanks, Fran. So we've got another question here. Are competency maps and assessments part of the process? I can take a stab at that. So everything, the Voovio platform, provides the opportunity to practice and learn procedures and then test on them. So taking assessments, that's up to each customer, but they have the tools to send out assessments to any of their operators on any of their procedures, and then they have the data presented in the format that I just shared with you in terms of test reports and those data analytics, by the way, which we are always adding to. So yeah, I mean, you get all of that as part of the package. I don't know if you want to add anything, Fran, to the question, are competency maps and assessments part of the process?
Yeah, so absolutely, yes. It's part of the overall platform, the knowledge platform that we provide with any project. So yes, that is part of what is delivered to the customer.
Okay, so we have another question here. Who provides the working instructional procedure for the AccuLoad system that the driver uses? AccuLoad or Calumet? I guess that's a question for Clint.
Yeah, so the AccuLoad, as far as the driver is concerned, the operating procedure for the AccuLoad is included in our procedures. So we basically spell that out. Our terminal automation system really controls the AccuLoad. Really all the AccuLoad is doing is receiving a gallon set point or something of that nature, driver information, and as a permissive to allow loading. So it's all in our procedure. The programming end of the AccuLoad is really not, it's not part of the driver loading process, and that's totally separate, and the driver would never be involved with that.
Okay. And it looks like we have another question for you, Clint, related to the actual operation. It says, does each loading arm have a dead man switch that will automatically shut off the flow in an emergency, one that the driver must hold open to allow asphalt to flow?
The answer to that is no. There's no specific switch that a driver holds open, but we do have some overfill protection level probes on each arm that would allow the system to shut down in an overload.
Okay. We've got another question here. I think this looks like a Voovio question. Is the system designed to be easily updated to keep up with the constant changes and modifications to operating procedures and equipment? Yeah, I can take a first stab at that, Fran, and then you can add yes. The system, actually, Voovio's platform and technology behind it was specifically designed for manufacturing environments. we didn't really go into the technology itself, but the visuals that you see there, the ability to walk around the plant or the refinery and interact with equipment and the simulation, all of that is built using normal photographs. So updating anything is just as simple as getting some new pictures, which are very easy to get. So in order to make those changes to procedures, you may add steps and so forth. Again, those are very easy, and as we said, customers can take care of a lot of those modifications themselves, the vast majority, and we're always available to help where needed. I don't know if you want to add anything, Fran?
I'll just add that, even during the pandemic, we had customers updating their content. They would update procedure changes, knowledge snippets, and if they had a picture change, they could take the picture with a digital camera, their cell phone, send it to us, and drop it in a replica. So yes, it's very simple to update.
Well, I think I guess it's already approaching 50 minutes. So, Mark, I think we can take any more questions through the system, and we'll connect with those individuals outside of the webinar.
Excellent. Thank you, Christian, and thank you, Fran and Clint, for this great presentation on a technology that will save many refineries and chemical plants a lot of heartache and money. And thanks to Voovio, the sponsor. Please visit them at voovio.com. If you do have any further questions or want to contact Voovio for additional information, you can see Christian's and Fran's emails on that last slide. Now, you can rewatch and share this presentation in the recorded mode. It takes about 2 hours for the system to render that and be available. So you can use the actual link you received to watch this presentation in the email that you received. You can also find the webinar on bicwebinars.com. And do please visit bicmagazine.com daily for articles and videos on current news and trends and industry expansions, technical knowledge. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you again, Voovio. Everyone have a safe day.